Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Terrorism in the American left. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Well, I finally figured it out. After thinking about it all weekend, I believe I now know why some committed left-wingers constantly diminish the terror threat from ISIS and other groups. Before I tell you the reason, I want to spotlight something that happened last week. Congressman Jim Clyburn, very liberal guy from South Carolina, put forth an amazing analysis of the Orlando terror attack, to which I replied.
This gentleman, it is now being revealed, had a lot of hate, and it seems that some of it was self-hate. And consequently, this is not about ISIS. This is not about any kind of foreign terror. This is about guns in America and whether or not we're going to have some kind of moderation to the Second Amendment, just as we have to the First Amendment.
He gets all right about terrorism. It's about gun control. You know, and I just want to slap him with all due respect. You know, what is it going to take? Do the ISIS people have to come to your backyard? All right, do they have to put you in a cage? Because they will. Now, I use the slap line as a rhetorical device to show my displeasure. That was obvious unless you're a complete moron. But the crazy left websites who routinely mislead their readers played it up as an actual physical threat. A few hours later, the Congressional Black Caucus demanded an apology. I very politely said to them, come on to Factor, we'll talk about it. I also invited Congressman Clyburn on as well. Guess what? They're hiding under their desks. I guess they're afraid I would slap them. So here's the deal. We researched the congressman, and we can find no mention of gun control in connection with the Chicago violence. None. This weekend, 13 more people shot to death in the Windy City, at least 43 others wounded, including a 3-year-old boy. That brings the total to about 1,800 human beings shot so far this year in Chicago. Paging Congressman Clyburn. Come on, if he were truly concerned about guns in America, he'd have to say at least something about his fellow African Americans being shot down in Chicago every single day, and it's been going on for years. He'd have to say something, would he not? Now, the reason Clyburn brought up guns in connection with Orlando is because the left in general doesn't want the American people to focus on the danger from ISIS overseas. That's a Muslim hate group. They don't want to bring Muslims in at all. It doesn't play into the narrative of the far left, who generally believe that America is the source of much of the trouble in the world. We're the problem. So they constantly push a point of view that demonizes the USA as a bad place, an unfair place. Forget about ISIS. It's all about America allowing guns to kill people. Refocusing the overseas terror problem on the USA is a strategy by the far left. Summing up, thousands of African Americans being gunned down by other African Americans in Chicago, which has very, very strict gun control laws. Yet Congressman Clyburn has no comment on that. Yet he has plenty to say about guns, not ISIS, being the real problem in Orlando. You make the call. And that's a memo. Now for the top story reaction. Joining us from Washington, Charles Krauthammer. So what's your call on this, Charles?
Look, I think it's absolutely right that the left needs to point to gun control as a distraction from the fact that the policy that Obama, representing the left, has pursued for 7.5 years has demonstrably failed, which is precisely why they had to edit and redact his discussions with the hostage negotiator. We're talking about the Orlando shooter here. Even though it is obvious they'd already said that he was acting, as he said himself, in the name of ISIS. You don't want to remind people what the real cause, the motive here is. You'd rather talk about something else. They know how to talk about the guns. They don't know how to elaborate, execute a policy against ISIS.
But I think, you know, a guy like Clyburn, old-time politician, went through the civil rights era, paid his dues. I'm sure he was treated harshly in many, many occasions. He's got to see that this thing in Chicago is so far out of control and that the white establishment that runs that city has done absolutely nothing about it. Yet he doesn't make any comment for years. And then he makes this Orlando thing, which I found personally offensive. If I were the family of people who died there, I would be going, you know what? Let's deal with the real problem here. You can deal with gun control. I think it's a valid issue to deal with it, but that's not the primary source of the hatred toward the USA. So, you know, I got to call these guys out, and I kind of feel bad for the congressman. Again, I know he's been through some hard times, but I think what he did was absolutely wrong.
And you said it, and I don't think that you need me to defend you in this. It's very clear that this is what the left is doing. And Clyburn is not the major player here. The major player here is Barack Obama.
Yeah, but Clyburn went out there.
Right.
You know what President Obama's agenda is. We all know what that is. But I can make an association because, and I guess the president and I could do the same thing, because what has he done about the violence in Chicago? And that's where he came from. I don't know why they ignore it.
Look, he's also coming from a view of the United States foreign policy, a view of the world, where he thinks, as much of the left does, that we have been overbearing, impinging, and imposing ourselves on other countries to the detriment of those countries and to ourselves. That was the essence of his apology tour when he came into the White House in the first place. This is sort of the essence of his foreign policy, and it explains why he chose from the very first day a policy of retreat. And when that policy is blown up in his face, he thought if you leave them alone, if you eliminate the influence of the United States, damaging as it has been in many places, we will find peace and harmony, we'll be left alone at home. The exact opposite happens in Orlando. The guy says he's acting in the name of the leader of ISIS, in the name of Allah, calling for an end to the airstrikes in Syria and Iraq. And that exposes the Obama policy as bankrupt.
How long is it going to be before I'm called a racist for this analysis tonight? Do you have a clock on it?
Well, I think they've been doing that for, 20 years?
Yeah. But, I mean, it's going to happen. You're going to see it right from the jump. But, look, it's a shame because ISIS terror and the ISIS threat, all Americans should come together and fight it. I mean, and it's a shame that we can't do that as a country. It really says a lot about the state of the USA.
Well, my point is, this is not a Clyburn issue. This is an Obama issue.
Okay.
And that's where we should focus.
All right. Thank you, Charles.